Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really fascinating, one of the most profound tensions in human creation. And honestly, it's a tension you've probably felt in your own life or work, right? We're going to explore this stark, incredibly cool divide between the absolute mastery of execution and the sudden, sometimes violent rupture of invention. It's the age-old battle and, well, kind of a quiet partnership between the craftsman and the artist. Let's get into it. Okay, let's map out our journey. We're looking at the dichotomy, the divide in practice, the dialectic loop, and then things get really interesting and a bit dark when we hit the chemistry of subversion and finally, the toll of genius. Starting off with section 1, the dichotomy, defining the apex of iteration versus the vector of rupture. So, first up, the craftsman. This entire mindset is about the subjugation of the ego to the material, to function, and to tradition. The ultimate goal? The complete, absolute eradication of error. The craftsman has a fundamentally conservative mindset, and actually, I mean that in the literal sense of conserving knowledge. They rely on this deep, exhaustive muscle memory, and really just view themselves as a vessel for an unbroken lineage of historical wisdom. Their mastery comes from absolute consistency. Every single movement is a relentless pursuit of perfect, repeatable execution. But then, flip the coin, and we have the artist. The mindset here is radically different. We're talking about the deconstruction, synthesis, and subversion of history to articulate something that has literally never existed before. The artist is inherently revolutionary. They don't just follow the rules, They ingest history only to mispronounce it on purpose. Their goal isn't to create some flawless replica of the past. No, they want to cause cultural displacement and psychological shock. For an artist, repeating a historical model precisely isn't a triumph. It's forgery, or just plain stagnation. And this brilliantly illustrates what we actually value when we consume their work in our own lives. For the craftsman, it's all about the reduction of variance. We buy from them for permanence, for reliability, the guarantee of perfection. But you don't buy an artist's work for utility. Absolutely not. You buy it for the introduction of variance. You want the provocation, the revelation. You want to have your very perception of reality completely altered. Moving into section 2, the divide in practice, we're going to look at furniture, music, and fashion. Let's ground these lofty ideas into some real-world disciplines. Take furniture. The traditional Japanese miyadaiku carpenter gives us invisible perfection and true permanence. But then look at Rietveld. He basically smashed the concept of a chair into abstract primary colors. He prioritized ideological provocation way over actual domestic comfort. Or music. J.S. Bach's clockwork precision in his weekly cantatas is pure structural equilibrium. In complete contrast, Arnold Schoenberg learned a late romantic harmony better than anyone and then actively refused to use it. He invented the 12-tone technique just to force a total paradigm shift. And in fashion, Asado Rowe Taylor strives for aristocratic discretion and flawless symmetry. Meanwhile, Ray Kawakubo of Comme des Garçons uses unexpected padding to violently distort the human silhouette, creating absolute conceptual subversion. It's a wild contrast. Next up is section 3, the dialectic loop, the ecosystem of creation. Let's see how this all builds into a fascinating 4-step cycle. Because we really shouldn't just view them as opposites, but as an interdependent ecosystem. Step 1, the artist destroys by breaking a tradition and inventing this chaotic, idiosyncratic new language. Step 2, the craftsman codifies. Over time, they take that shocking innovation and tame it into a rigorous, formal technique. Step 3, the machine perfects. Once it's codified, it can be replicated with ultimate consistency, and boom, it becomes the new traditional standard. And finally, step 4, the cycle repeats. A brand new generation of artists emerges to rebel against that exact same standard. So the machine-like craftsman provides the stable foundations of human civilization, right? While the innovative artist provides the necessary lightning strike to ensure we never stagnate in our own perfection. Now we hit section 4, the chemistry of subversion. The profound operational paradox. The derangement of all the senses. This quote by French poet Arthur Rimbaud perfectly captures the artist's drive. To invent something truly unprecedented, an artist actually has to bypass their own cognitive filters. They have to break deeply ingrained habits and conventional logic. We call this the shamanic function. Much like traditional shamans entering altered states, these creators often used mild stimulants or depressants to literally trick their brains. Think about it. If you're trying to write a poem that has never been written, a completely sober, hyper-rational brain will often just default to cliché. Intoxication kind of short-circuits that predictable path. So the crucial point is that this creates a profound operational paradox. The shamanic function relies entirely on de-automation. It lowers inhibitions, lets those erratic, weird, nonlinear ideas slip through. A writer or composer can wake up the next morning and edit a chemically induced fever dream because, well, the raw material is just thought. But the craftsman's curse? That requires hyper-automation and zero margin for error. If a master cabinet maker is matching a 1/32-inch veneer joint, introducing a depressant just creates physical noise. A trembling hand or a delayed reaction time doesn't produce an avant-garde masterpiece, it just produces scrap wood. For the craftsman, the execution itself is the art, so they absolutely have to remain monastic in their physical discipline. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the toll of genius. The bill always comes due. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing exactly how specific substances acted as pharmacological levers for these distinct creative engines. Picasso, for instance, used absinthe, wine, and cannabis just to maintain a state of hypervigilant, childlike play. That's what helped him dissolve visual logic to invent cubism. Frank Lloyd Wright, on the other hand, relied on fine bourbon and strong coffee as a kind of social armor and as fuel for his manic, tireless drafting marathons. Claude Debussy used absinthe and heavy champagne to induce this hazy, synesthetic escape from rigid Germanic tonal structures. Charles Bukowski essentially weaponized cheap wine and beer, using his own degradation as a raw badge of literary authenticity. And Ernest Hemingway used daiquiris and scotch as a vital transition ritual, a way to wash away the intense psychological friction of mining his own trauma once his workday ended. But, as we said, the bill always comes due, and it's a stark contrast. Picasso's hobbits magnified a terrifying, autocratic cruelty and a highly volatile ego. Wright's hubris and drinking fueled disastrous financial mismanagement and huge public scandals. Debussy's lifestyle severely compromised his immune system, leading to an agonizing battle with cancer. Picasso endured severe ulcers, tuberculosis, and ultimately kind of fell into the trap of self-parody. And most tragically, Hemingway's years of heavy abuse led to severe hemochromatosis, devastating paranoia, and his suicide. Now, it is worth noting a rare exception here, someone like Isamu Noguchi. He was a visionary artist who operated heavily as a craftsman of stone and bronze. His intense physical discipline, matching that of a craftsman, ultimately saved him from this chemical ruin. Tying all these complex lives together, a distinct, honestly tragic three-phase life cycle emerges. It starts in youth, the phase of expansion. This is where intoxicants help break down inhibitions to access novel, weird perspectives. But as they reach middle age, it transitions to the phase of maintenance. Suddenly, the substances become a coping mechanism. They're dealing with the immense pressure of their own reputation and the isolating weight of genius. Finally, they hit decline, the phase of destruction. The neurochemistry permanently changes. The brain literally relies on the substance just to feel normal. Physical decay sets in, and the creative output either completely dries up or just becomes a derivative echo of their former glory. Which brings us to a final, lingering question to wrap this up. Is the lightning strike of true artistic invention really worth the inevitable cost of its own destruction? Or is the permanence and stability of the craftsman the only actual path to peace? It's a profound dichotomy, and one that literally defines the shape of our cultural history. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive illuminated these ideas for you and leaves you with plenty to chew on the next time you admire a perfectly built chair or a shockingly chaotic painting. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.